Hello and welcome to a deeper look at Star Citizen's roadmap. Today I want to focus on what's being completed between now and October. Why? Because that's a good indicator of what might be shown at CitizenCon this year and what we might have feature-wise soonish thereafter. CitizenCon 2023 is massive this year. It is the first physical CitizenCon event that Cloud Imperium have had since 2019. It's a 2-day event this time as well, which is a first, and that's going to be streamed for you to watch for free over on the Star Citizen Twitch. CIG have a lot to show, but we don't know exactly what yet. They're being quite cagey about that. They obscure a lot of stuff and go, it's the road to CitizenCon. We're going to have lots of surprises for you, but we're not going to talk that much about it. The roadmap, however, does have a lot of indicators. We are going to also delve into work that's finishing up in August and September, which is likely some of it going to be implemented for Alpha 3.20. And later this year beyond that as well. So if we get a 3.21 patch or 4.0 patch by the end of the year, lots of these features are likely to make it there. There were no new features specifically started in August. So lots of features being completed or continuing to being worked on, but nothing specifically started according to the roadmap tracker. There are, however, some new and reformed teams that Cloud Imperium have built for features, an economy-specific one, a North American Persistent Universe gameplay feature team, and a vehicle gameplay feature team. So those are some quite powerful strike forces feature-wise. And we're likely going to see what they're working on and some new features next month. Please bear in mind as well that features on the roadmap and the tracker that we're going to talk about here, even if they show us work completed, they still might need more work before Persistent Universe implementation, more as yet unscheduled work for downstream teams, things like that, or they might need to go through iteration in the Squadron 42 dev branch before coming into the game. But let's take a look at what's being finished in August and September first, some of which are part of the 3.20 build, or they're going to turn up later this year. So we've got the Virtual AI service, a service that drives the logic of virtual AI, the go-between of subsumption AI and quanta AI. So this is a big part of the dynamic universe simulation and all the stuff that Tony Zurovec talks about that sounds amazing, but we don't have much of an implementation of yet. So this is obviously going to be tied to the economy and mission generation and what enemies you see where, all that sort of jazz. Current work on the Tumbrel Storm by the vehicle concept team, it looks like it's coming to an end in August, which is good because it looks like the vehicle's going to be done soon. Seated item handling. This feature will add the ability for players and NPCs to use items or smaller weapons while seated in the passenger seat of a vehicle or ship. So you can shoot out the back and all that sort of jazz. Reputation shop discounts. We know Cloud Imperium are working on various reputation updates. Shop discounts looks like they're being completed this month. And this is going to give you discounts in certain areas based on what organizations you're affiliated with and your reputation level with them. Physics, rope simulation. They're extending the simulation algorithm of ropes to support ropes interacting with pulleys and improve general stability to enable the development of new gameplay mechanics and ways that you can sort of complete puzzles and all that sort of jazz. But also, cool rope simulation. It's going to be cool. It'll be chains and stuff like that as well. Anything that's rope-like. Physical damage and breakability. That's actually quite a big one here. This makes use of the physics engine to create a system that looks and behaves realistically when large objects such as ships are damaged by weaponry or colliding with other ships, locations, or planets. Really looking forward to seeing that on capital ships and that sort of stuff in the future. It's going to be much better than the sort of placeholdery system that we've got at the moment. The NPC scheduler. So this is meant to add and remove NPCs to the game, dynamically spawning them into and out of the verse based on NPC archetype, maximum number of NPCs in a given area, and the probabilities of those NPC archetypes. It's very much connected to that virtual AI service and all of the quanta stuff that, again, Tony Zurovec had talked about. New missions, Steal Evidence. So there is a slew of new missions and new mission stuff that Cloud Imperium have been working on. In August, looks like the Steal Evidence missions will be completed. A criminal mission type where players are tasked with infiltrating Security Base Korea and stealing files from Crusader Security for hefty payouts, making use of that SPK area. The Mission Manager app is getting updated alongside converting this to building blocks. This feature includes an updated UI to support the dynamic mission system, also includes the ability for players to see reputational requirements of mission content. There's an MFD rework, so this is the screens on ships. They're bringing it up to spec with the new building blocks UI, and they're also completely redesigning them in an effort to make them more customizable, better matched for ship aesthetics, and better at serving ship gameplay. The Gen 12 renderer Tier 1, I'm assuming this also includes Vulkan integration, but basically they're coming to an end of the full Tier 1 implementation of the Gen 12 renderer, which should improve performance and hopefully have Vulkan here as well, which will potentially give you a slew of graphical options that you'd expect in a more fully fledged game. Expect more performance and a nice basis for Vulkan to be put into the game if it isn't there at the same time. Fire hazards. We know that Cloud Imperium have been working on fire. We've seen it recently. The fire hazard system will track fire and temperature on static and dynamic objects for the initial release of fire. The feature will be set up on a few vehicles. ATC service, air traffic control service. The logic for air traffic control is handled separately on each dedicated game server. As they move closer to the reality of server meshing, the logic for air traffic control needs to be translated to a separate service. AR and map maker system rework. They're reworking the map markers and map system, which is going to be good because we need better navigation in the game. And if they sort of give me better ways of getting to places and knowing where my sort of mission locations are, awesome. Moving into work that's scheduled for completion in September. Arena Commander updates. This is experimental modes, the front-end stuff, racetracks. We know this is all going to be included in Alpha 3.20. Entity Properties plugin, improving entity property handling to easily adjust properties for multiple entities, at the same time decreasing iteration time for designers. This is a major upgrade to the old way of handling entity properties, which was pretty limited and hard to extend. Some tools updates as well with Hex, allowing them to manipulate data in real time for all the microservices. Some bigger features, though, completing in September, or at least scheduled to be completed in September. Persistent entity streaming and server meshing work. So this is proprietary server meshing and persistence technology that will allow Star Citizen to scale up its shared universe across game servers. Eventually, this technology will allow thousands of players to coexist in the verse. Once the first version of this is implemented, the number of servers and players will increase over successive versions. This probably isn't going to be static server meshing yet, but it is probably going to be a significantly more refined version of persistent entity streaming, and them now building into getting static server meshing actually implemented thereafter. So I am hoping that we see some form of test of this by the end of the year, but we'll sort of have to wait and see. Pyro system, planet and mission setup. This is a great indication of 4.0 coming sooner than later. Completing the initial foundational work needed to implement the Pyro system into the game. Quantum simulation revealed at CitizenCon 2019 as well. The quantum simulation will serve as the background economy for Star Citizen. Thousands of unseen simulated entities will carry out trade, commerce, piracy, and security to populate and inform other game systems. All of those three features, server meshing, E-type stuff, Pyro, and quantum simulation, looks to me like they're going to be big parts of CitizenCon 2023, at least in my opinion. Sort of makes sense. Potentially, they're going to be pushing some of these to be in-game later this year or early next. Vehicle tractor beams as well, something else that's pegged to get work finished in September. Implementing tractor beams that are attached to ships, either remote controlled or turret-like, and they allow players to move large objects and ships and tow things. Really, really important for the game and for so many different gameplay mechanics. Moving on to work that's being completed in October. So a lot of this stuff I think will actually be shown at CitizenCon in some way. There is a lot of Squadron 42 work scheduled for completion in October, very conveniently just before CitizenCon, from features like character work to a huge amount of chapter work just looking like it's complete. Now, it's possible they just cut off their schedule for, well, actually, we're not showing what we're working on Squadron 42-wise at the moment because we're focusing on other areas on the roadmap or whatever. Maybe they just haven't updated it. But if you look at it, it does look like, well, actually, a lot of work is scheduled to be completed just before CitizenCon on Squadron. There are various yet-to-be-announced vehicles, variants, and ships in October that Cloud Imperium have been working on. 3 that have finished work in the last few months, actually. We don't know what they are, though. 3 that have work completing in October. One of them, almost certainly, is going to be the Fury LX. There's rumours of variants of starter ships or Tier 2 starter ships and things like that as well, so we'll have to wait and see. Active Status System Tier 2. This looks at a variety of new elements such as hygiene, NPC status tracking, DNA integrity, medical insurance, cybernetic limbs, cloning, etc. So part of the Death of a Spaceman, but also part of bounty hunting and tracking, and the dynamic universe sim, bringing medical gameplay into all of that as well. Artificial gravity, implementing the dedicated functionality for items controlling the gravity per room for ships, outposts, and stations. This also includes player controls as part of engineering gameplay. You can turn off gravity, you can turn it back on, you can blow up a gravity generator, and the ship's gravity will go out. Cutting, Tier 2, all back-end tech tasks related to updating the cutting feature for the multi-tool that will be used in future locations and mission updates. The continued development of the existing multi-tool technology will allow players to cut through specific objects. This will primarily include the ability to freeform cut on specific surfaces. We've seen this shown by CIG a few times now, using cutting as part of like gameplay and mission elements, but not really used it in the game ourselves, even though we have cutting technically available to us. There's a variety of new ammo that Cloud Imperium have been working on for ship weapons and different ammo types that will be able to use in FPS weapons. Incendiary ammo, so ballistic projectiles that burn on impact. Plasma ammo, so this does damage over time once it's hit a target and leaves hazards behind as well. Disarray ammo, this is sort of like a charged ballistic projectile that also emits a electromagnetic pulse. They're also working on distortion propagation, which is sort of work on the distortion damage type to propagate into other systems. So you hit somewhere and the locations that are nearby will take distortion damage as well and sort of like leach into systems, because we're going for a more physical component-based damage system rather than artificial health pools for ships. When you damage the component, that will affect the ship, and that's how you sort of take out ships. You destroy their components or the connections between them. There's some headhunter outfits, so this is one of the Pyro gangs that you'll see in Pyro. Life support systems, Tier 0, implementing the first iteration of onboard life support systems in ships, which entails a ship component that generates air when turned on, and the management of said life support component within the vehicle loadout manager. Obviously, fire as well will burn through oxygen. There is a room system, and obviously if you open up doors into space, the air and atmosphere gets taken out there. Map and radar system rework, an overhaul of the underlying system and associated UI for the star map, radar, local area map, and minimap. This is something I am super excited for, because I want a minimap in the game, and I want a better star map, and I think we sort of all do, and that will catapult the game into the next level of actually enjoyment for me, because exploration and minimap important. Mobiglass rework, reworking the Mobiglass system to use building blocks, which will allow for easier development of the Mobiglass apps and also probably make it look a bit better. Player interaction experience, so expect a better looking HUD, a new equip and remove experience, boot up and power down sequences, and transitions between FPS and ship HUDs as well, so a much better feeling experience for that sort of stuff. Sliding. This feature will introduce a new traversal method for players, allowing them to traverse short distances by sliding along the floor. This will add a new element to combat situations. I wonder if you'll be able to just slide across any surface though. Like, is it the same if I slide across gravel? Is it if I slide across polished metal? They're updating the subsumption editor so that they can have that working fully in-game. Swimming, creating basic functionality for players to swim across like bodies of water, and they can drown, and you can get in and out of water, and some of them are going to have hazardous liquids. Weapon misfire and wear, adding the potential for certain weapons to misfire or malfunction depending on various factors. So that's a lot of the stuff that we've got between now and October. Now, a lot of that stuff I do think is going to be shown at CitizenCon. The potential is certainly there. I do think it is very suspect that there's a lot of Squadron 42 work that is completing in October just before CitizenCon. I really hope that we see an example of artificial gravity, the new sort of minimap, star map, the dynamic universe sim and quanta, and all this sort of AI and economy stuff, ship tractor beams, and server meshing, pyro, and potentially even that physical damage and breakability stuff with capital ships, all at CitizenCon this year. And I'm really interested to know what you think. Are you expecting some or all of that to be shown at CitizenCon? Obviously, it's a 2-day event. Cloud Imperium are holding a lot of stuff back at the moment. Inside Star Citizens are a little bit more bare or focused on more minor updates at the moment while they're sort of getting ready for CitizenCon, and I do think that it's going to be a genuinely massive show. Do you think they're going to show off a load of Squadron 42 stuff? Or do you think, no, they're not going to want to show that yet? it's just a coincidence or them not updating the roadmap, which is why it's showing work finished at October, coincidentally at the same time as CitizenCon. Do you think some more of this stuff that we talked about might make it into 3.20 or later in the year in the 3.21 or 4.0 patch, whatever they call it? Do you think we could have Pyro by the end of the year in some form, even if it's just in testing? Are you looking forward to CitizenCon, and what are you expecting to see? Whatever your thoughts, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Are we alone in the universe? The truth is out there, but what if aliens visit Earth? But they're like monsters, and all they do is look through your internet history, judging you, laughing at you with all their alien friends, watching your every move live, and then they send like 1 million ads to you about alien products that you don't want, like those shoes and socks that have a gap between your big toes. No one needs that. But what you do need is nordvpn.com/BoredGamer, which helps you prevent that happening from the more real threat of humans doing the same. It encrypts your internet connection, hides your IP address and location, it has an inbuilt ad blocker, and also helps you gain access to region-based content. You should go to nordvpn.com/BoredGamer and get a big ol' discount. You can also click the links below. Every month, we have a ship giveaway. For August, it's for a Crusader Mercury Star Runner with lifetime insurance. This medium-sized, well-armed cargo and data hauler is great for trying out a huge range of what Star Citizen has to offer, a perfect mission runner ship. To be in for a chance of winning, just comment on any of my videos made during the month. More details in the description below. There are some amazing people that help support the channel by clicking on the join button under my videos and becoming a channel member or becoming a Patreon with the links below. That helps keep the channel going and producing daily content. Please consider joining their ranks, but commenting, liking, subscribing, that all massively helps too. Thanks for watching to the end, and I'll see you in the verse.